Keith Caldwell, and he's given us some information in reference to religion and faith and religion. And so, Mr. Caldwell, let's pick up where we left off before we had our second commercial break, dealing with religion and faith, or faith and religion, however you wish to pursue it, as a community organizer, and some of the issues that you have found to be of importance that our audience ought to know about today.
Yeah, I'd like to direct folks to some of the work done around affordable housing. You know, we're experiencing enormous gentrification here in the city, and it's displacing a lot of folks. There's a group called Open Table, and Open Table works with people who are homeless and people who are threatened to be homeless. We think about there are 200 people a day moving into Nashville, right at 60,000 people a year, one of the 5 top cities in America. But it's really a tale of 2 cities. So we see maybe Charlotte Avenue as the line of demarcation, and this affluence on the West End side, and then North Nashville, particularly with the 28th corridor being open, being just so rapidly gentrified that people are being displaced. And there was a rally this past week that folks are doing. Fort Negley, people were camping out because the mission is so filthy they don't want to go to military.
Is that why they are not there? Is the mission situation that bad?
A lot of the folks who are living at Fort Negley said because of the and the restrictive manner that it's run. So I mean, we appreciate the work that the mission is doing, but we want to make sure that folks have affordable housing. You know, and Nashville's Table. Open Table is doing some great work around that. I want to encourage folks to connect with them and to just participate in any way that they can to help support the work, the incredible work. So they're pushing for public policy. There's the Bill Barnes Fund that the mayor, Megan Barry, who I think she's a wonderful person, and she's also a politician. So we have to make sure that we're creating the political will for her to move, and creating the opening so she can move through, and because I think that she really would like to do the right things, but politically that there's no backlash that comes on her for doing the right thing. So we want to make sure we support that. I was thinking about Ban the Box that Democracy Nashville has been working on. It's brought Kenneth Kane and some others that, so Ban the Box is this on the application asking about a felony conviction, and with any governmental job, we want to delay that question to maybe the last interview. We're not saying to not disclose at some point, but if you check that I have a criminal record on most applications,
you know, interview after this,
thrown out the door.
I understand.
And some of these things are 20, 30 years old. People maybe did smoking marijuana or anything, and it continues to haunt them. So we want to say, okay, you've paid your debt to society, and we want to restore that. The restoration of voter rights to former felons. People like Representative Brenda Gilmore helped to get that passed about 6 years ago, and NAACP, other folks, to say if you have this one conviction and it doesn't fall within, there are 4 exclusions that can't be expunged. And then people can get opportunity to get another start. So I've also been working some with Black Lives Matter. And we think about Black Lives Matter, and so this idea, well, don't all lives matter? And of course they do. The best way I heard talked about Black Lives Matter, it says, if you live in a cul-de-sac and your house is on fire, and the fire truck comes, it's going to pass every house on that cul-de-sac and go to the one that's burning to the ground, to the one that is in most need of attention. So the person next door could say, well, why didn't you spray my house? Well, it would hurt your house to spray it if you don't have the fire. And so it's not to the exclusion of other lives mattering, but it's addressing the 500-year brutal legacy of the dehumanization of people. And so on this continuum, it places all human beings back on what it means to be human, so that no one is dehumanized and economically exploited. It is also an echo of Jesus when he says that every human being is created in the image of God, in the Imago Dei. And so talking about being made in the image of God and after the likeness of God, then we need to respect everyone's humanity, and we all benefit when all human life is respected.
Well, now, Ms. Caldwell, what kind of support do you feel that your organization is receiving in terms of the kind of social program, the kind of religious program, and topics that you're dealing with? I mean, is there a real concern that people have in Nashville in reference to some of these things?
Yes. In fact, we noticed back last November of 2014, we were going to have a candlelight vigil. It was Black Lives Matter. And that same day, the verdict came in on I Can't Breathe, Eric Garner. So we were expecting, on Facebook, we had about 70 people who signed up. And that was at 6:00 p.m. We were going to hold candlelight vigil in front of the downtown police precinct. Well, at 5:30, we had 300 people. At 6:00, we had 700 people. And 30 or 40% of those people were well-intentioned white people who brought their children, their 10-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter, and said, you know, I've benefited from white supremacy, but I know what it's done to me, like that it contorts my soul. And I want to undo that, and I don't want my children to experience that. And so we're here. And so that's a reclaiming of one's humanity, you know, despite this system that does that. We knew that the folks were a little restless, and so the vigil turned into a march. It was a nonviolent march downtown. So we went down Broadway and we were coming up through the honky-tonks. And so here we are, coming up the honky-tonks, and people stumbling out and hearing Black Lives Matter from a 95-pound white woman with her 2 children. And so, but we see this as a human problem, and that when we do better, we all can do better. And so the interrelatedness of our humanity, and not to just, you know, we look at the current election and the vitriol that's going on, and who can be the most angry and the most fearful, and that's no way to be in community. So we want to have a love ethic that recaptures our humanity. And
Nashville would seem to be an excellent place for that to start. In view of all of the religious, I think you mentioned earlier, all the religious institutions, whether publishing institutions, churches, and et cetera, and et cetera. So this would, in a real sense, be the Rome, in a real sense, of the Black Lives Matter movement.
And there's a group called Surge, and they are white anti-racists, doing fantastic work. And the same factors that were here in 1960 are the same factors that continue to make Nashville a beloved community, or a potential site for beloved community.
And so in a real sense, Mr. Caldwell, as we end this show for today, we've got about a minute and a half. In a real sense, you think that some of the work that you and others are doing really has an impact in terms of making people more aware of what is going on, affordable housing, health, incarceration, and et cetera. These are all some of the issues that you're dealing with in order to try to improve society, and in a real sense bring religion and faith together.
That's right, and particularly in the face of this prosperity gospel that is being preached around, if you believe God, then you can have a Mercedes-Benz in your driveway, and it has no critique of unjust systems. It has none. And it's a failure, and it's about this individualistic, capitalistic Christianity. About, you know, it's really like I make a deal with God. For me, versus that God is saying, I'm coming back for a people, that we are saved in the collective, we are saved in the aggregate, and so our salvation is tied up one to another, and that our salvation isn't entirely otherworldly, not by and by yonder ways, but on this side of the grave. And to imagine that I would have to die to experience any liberation. Oh, how convenient is that for the powers that be, that I would have to die in order to be liberated. And so I serve a God who is concerned about me holistically.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Caldwell, let me thank you for coming by and giving us excellent information, because I think that there are so many opportunities that people miss when they don't understand what you're talking about now. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and